The Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will now come to order for November 4, 2015. It is now 6:30. May we have roll call?
Mr. Fuller.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Present.
Mr. Edmondson.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Christina Enix is excused. Mr. Porter.
Here.
Mr. Cross.
Here. We do have a quorum. First item of business is the action summary from Wednesday, October 7th, 2015. Do I have a motion to approve the action summary? Dan Young moves. Ken Fuller seconds. Is there any opposition? Seeing no opposition, the motion summary, action summary is approved. Next item of business is informational items. We have three abbreviated plat action summaries for October 5th, October 12th, and October 19th. Do we have any disclosures? Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I have, in the case of S12223, Stuck Again Heights Subdivision, Block 3, Lots 5A and 6A. My firm has had business dealings with the petitioner's representative on other matters. I'm a former employee of the petitioner's representative. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board tonight. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interests will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case.
Thank you. Do I have a motion directing Dan Young to participate in case S12223, Stuck Again Heights? Don Porter moves and Kevin Cross seconds. Mr. Porter, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I move to direct Dan Young to participate in the case. He has stated that he doesn't have any substantial interests that would prevent him from making a fair decision.
Thank you. Any other findings that anyone would like to offer? Is there any opposition to Dan Young participating in this case? Seeing none, the motion passes. Dan Young, you are directed to participate in case S12223, Stuck Again Heights. Do you have any other disclosures?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the board who have any disclosures? With respect to new business, we have case S12207, O'Malley Square subdivision, and we have, may I have a motion to postpone this matter indefinitely? Trevor Edmondson moves, and Dan Young seconds. Would you please speak to your motion?
Case S12207, O'Malley Square subdivision. I move to indefinitely postpone this case since the petitioner has some items they need to resolve prior to moving forward with the case.
Thank you. Any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. The next case we have is West Fork Subdivision, S12217. And it appears that that is being postponed to December 2nd, 2015. That motion is made by Trevor Edmondson and seconded by Don Porter. Would you speak to your motion?
Sure. In case S12217, West Fork subdivision, I move to postpone the case to 12/2/15 as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you. Any opposition to this motion? Seeing and hearing none, that motion passes. Our next matter is case S12218, the Terraces, and it has been withdrawn. Trevor Edmondson moves to accept the withdrawal, and Ken Fuller seconds. Would you please speak to your motion?
Chair, through case S12218, the Terraces, I move to withdraw the case as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you. Any opposition? Seeing none, the motion passes. That brings us to case S12223, Stuckagen Heights, edition number 1. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to subdivide 2 lots into 2 different lots with vacation of a portion of Basher Drive. The purpose of the preliminary plat is to vacate a portion of the right-of-way around an existing detached garage whose foundation encroaches 5.7 feet into the Basher Drive right-of-way. The preliminary plat will also change the interior lot line between proposed lots 5A and 6A in order to give lot 5A a little bit more front yard along Basher Drive. In 2002, a garage was built under an approved land use permit using an as-built that was more than 20 feet drawn incorrectly. The surveying error was discovered after the garage had been built and final as-built was completed by a different surveyor to close out the permit. The right-of-way division will not grant an encroachment permit for a permanent structure into the Basher Drive right-of-way. The only 2 remaining options for the property owner are to remove the encroachment, that is, remove the structure, or to obtain this right-of-way vacation. The right-of-way that is subject to the vacation request is in excess of municipal needs now and in the future. The official streets and highways plan says that this portion of Basher Drive is a country lane, which requires a minimum of 30 feet to 50 feet of right-of-way. This section of Basher Drive currently has 60 feet of right-of-way. The petitioner is requesting a vacation of approximately 285 square feet of right-of-way around the existing garage. That would be a maximum width into the right-of-way of 10.05 feet. There will be 39.95 feet of width remaining in that one spot for future upgrades to Basher Drive. It's worth noting, too, that the constructed street is on the opposite side of the right-of-way. It's not, it's fully across the, it's not even straddling the center line of the road. It's on the opposite side of the right-of-way. So, in summation, the department is recommending approval of the vacation of approximately 285 square feet of right-of-way, subject to recording a final plat within 18 months and any approved time extension. The department's also recommending approval of the plat subject to conditions 1 through 5 on pages 5 and 6 of your packets. There is, I guess, 2 changes to the conditions of approval. There was some new information that was discovered just today that helped us deal with one of the conditions. So staff is asking that you delete all of condition 4 except for a portion of the last sentence. So everything you see on page 5 would be deleted. And then at the top of page 6, D would be deleted, and then the words the engineer is to would be deleted from E, So it would be capital D for determine if the well or existing Lot 5 has been drilled. That's all that's remaining is for the petitioner to look and see if they have a well on the lot that needs to be guarded by an easement. And if not, then if the well was never installed, then it's they just need to express that to on-site water and wastewater services to deal with that. So that's all I have. Be happy to answer questions, and the petitioner is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that we've had the staff's presentation, we will have a public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established by the Commission rules of procedure. Petitioners and their representatives will have 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs will have 5 minutes. Individuals will have 3 minutes. When you come up to provide testimony, please state your name and whether you wish to reserve some time. And then we'll start the time after you've got your name on the record. Yes. Before we go to that, thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Porter.
Through the chair, could you clarify? I just want to make sure that I understand on your department recommendations. You want to delete A, B, C, and D? Or do you want to actually delete the statement, resolve with on-site, ... on item 4?
Well, either one is fine. The petitioner, I think that we'll find that the petitioner, based on previous conversations, is staff is saying all we need is determine if a well for existing Lot 5 has been drilled. That's all that staff needs. If you want to add the words, with on-site water and wastewater services or resolve with, that's fine. I don't think either the applicant or staff it matters either way because this is just such a simple matter. I'm not concerned about adding any other wording.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll now open the floor to the petitioner's representative.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Tim Potter with Dell, representing the Garnetts tonight, and Mrs. Garnett is in the audience if you have any specific questions for her. The staff's done a real good job, and I appreciate the effort that they went into today to back check some existing information that, in fact, on-site water, wastewater did have concerning previous testing that had been done on the piece of property in question that did indicate that it did have the 3 proved up sites. There was an indication of a proposed well site. We do not believe that that well was ever drilled on that piece of property, but we will confirm with a site visit and then provide an affidavit letter back to the city to indicate that. So as Mr. McLaughlin indicated, our preference would be to just clean up number 4 by eliminating everything but reviewing to determine whether or not there was a well ever placed on that property and then reporting the news to the city. I think that's what everybody has discussed, and that would be, I think, the cleanest way to approach it. Secondarily, I'd like to make a minor correction to Mr. McLaughlin's presentation, and that was that, in fact, the existing right-of-way is 60 feet wide. It is designated a country lane, and as the staff indicated, that is designated for 30 to 50 feet of right-of-way. And when you take 60 feet and subtract 10.05 feet, which would be the maximum encroachment of this kind of angled encroachment that we're asking for the vacation of, that still leaves you with 49.95 feet, which is 5/100ths from the 50-foot maximum that is generally required for a country lane. So just in additional support, wanted to make sure that you realize that there is plenty of right-of-way left to meet the design requirements for a country lane and provide adequate right-of-way for future access. And then lastly, on page 19 of your packet, if you look at the aerial photo, You can see that as you're coming up Bachelor Drive and getting to, I believe it's Q, that the paving stops at that T intersection. The paving continues to the east and then to the north and then to the west again. So there is a gravel road that goes past the Garnett's existing house and the adjacent house to the north. And there's physically only 4 houses that take access to the gravel portion of the road, which we would be vacating a portion of. And looking at the prevailing direction that people drive, they do drive on the paved road section, not the gravel section. So you're really only talking about a road that impacts 4 people directly, and then indirectly in an emergency situation, the other homes in the area would have that back door access out. So we believe that leaving the 50 feet basically of right-of-way does meet the requirements and support the findings of the city traffic engineer and the staff, and would ask for your approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer and reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal if necessary.
Thank you. You have 6 minutes and 50 seconds for rebuttal. Are there any questions from the board? Don Porter.
Yes, so I noticed that there are essentially 3 driveways to the property. Does planning or anybody else have a concern with that?
It's a circular driveway, and then there's a driveway, and the circular driveway provides access to the house and the top floor of the garage. The garage is more of a daylight 2-story building, so there is a living unit and a garage component of that structure. The circular driveway up on top provides access to the Garnett's house in the upper level of the garage, and the other driveway provides lower access to the lower level of the building.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up to members of the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Anyone at all? You may now come and rebut. Thank you. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion approving the vacation of approximately, a motion to move for a vacation? Don Porter, would you please state your motion?
Yes, in the case of S12223-1, I move that we approve the vacation of approximately 285 square feet of right-of-way, subject to recording of the final plat within 18 months and any approved time extensions.
Thank you. And Dan Young has seconded the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. The staff presentation and the other documents that have been submitted before us show that they have an overriding need for the right-of-way, and further, they also have shown that the right-of-way is in excess of the need of the municipality. In this case, it just wouldn't make sense to tear down the garage for this, and not only that, but they've also only asked for the right-of-way necessary for the structure itself. So for those reasons, I intend to support the motion.
Thank you. Any other findings? Trevor Edmondson.
Chairman, I'd just also like to state that currently the right-of-way is for Basher is 60 foot wide. It's designated as a country lane, and that minimum requirements for a country lane are 30 to 50 feet of right-of-way, and that essentially this, by acting on this and approving this, that would encroach into the 50-foot potential 50-foot right-of-way by only 5/10 of a foot. So the minimum encroachment. I intend to support the motion.
Thank you. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I also want to state that in the findings that this is an area of a low traffic volume. There are very few potential residential or residents that could even be affected, but the effect would be small. And the traffic department has stressed that this is a case that involves a very unique situation, and by us approving this tonight should not be considered a precedent setting for future vacations. And so, and with that, with those findings, I too will support this motion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'd like to put a few comments on the record also. I am aware that the burden of proof lies entirely with the petitioner on a request for vacation. I'm aware that the street ends in an area presently occupied by the base. We didn't hear any testimony about what the chances are that the base might vacate their use of that land in the future, and therefore we're lacking evidence with respect to whether or not this particular access road would be actually excess or might actually have some future value to the city. And absent any evidence on that, I find it difficult to support the motion as it stands. I am aware that all of the neighbors, the 4 neighbors affected presently, do apparently support the motion, and would welcome any comments by the other fellow board members with respect to this topic. Dan Young.
Through the chair, I have a question for staff. If this road was widened to the full 49 point something feet, where's the entrance to the garage? Is it onto the road or is it onto the gravel driveway to the north?
The paved driveway.
It's to the driveway to the north. So if this road was widened, then egress from the garage would not create a blind spot moving out into the road.
I don't believe so, no.
Thank you.
Any other comments or findings? I guess we'll call the vote. And the motion passes. Okay. Next. Second. What do we need B for? Oh, that's right. Sorry. I would now entertain a motion for approval of the plat. And Don Porter, would you please state your motion?
Yes, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to items, conditions 1, 2, and 3, and item 4 to state, determine if the well for existing Lot 5 has been drilled, and all of condition 5, placing notes on the plat as recommended by staff.
Thank you. And Trevor Edmondson seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, as has been demonstrated through staff's presentation and also the petitioner, we feel confident that this is approvable. They have also addressed items that would need to be addressed in terms of things like taking the fence off, and I'm sorry, taking the fence and the shed from the right-of-way or obtaining an encroachment permit. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Any other findings or comments? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. We'll now turn to S12225 at Lakeview Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to subdivide one lot into one different lot with vacation of a 50-foot right-of-way and utility easement reserve labeled on the preliminary plat on 3 sides of the property. The preliminary plat shows 33 feet of right-of-way dedication on the south and west sides of the lot and no right-of-way dedication on the east side of the lot. The purpose of the plat is to increase the size of the lot in anticipation of redevelopment. The Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, the Traffic Department, and Private Development have no objection to the vacations because there will be adequate right-of-way for traffic circulation. Planning Division finds that the right-of-way dedications on 3 sides of the petition site are adequate for municipal needs and recommends approval of the vacation. East Lake Ridge Drive will have 66 feet of right-of-way, which exceeds the minimum standard of 60 feet. There will be 33 feet of right-of-way adjacent to the south lot boundary of the petition site. The length of this right-of-way will be approximately 90 feet in dead ends at a narrow strip of land labeled BLM Lot 104 Commissioner's Deed of Vacation. And they will have dedicated their half of the from center line on that south side. Raylene Street will have 50 feet wide BLM road right-of-way and utility reserve easement remaining on lot 101 directly to the east of the petition site. If Raylene Street is ever improved in the future, then there is sufficient area to construct a residential cul-de-sac north of the petition site where there's 30 foot of dedicated right-of-way and a 50-foot road reserve easement. The department is recommending approval of the vacations on the east, south, and west sides of Lakeview subdivision, subject to recording a final plat within 18 months and any approved time extensions. The department's also recommending approval of the plat, subject to conditions 1 through 7 on pages 6 and 7 of the packet. After the report came out, there were some discussions between the petitioner and staff, and working with them, we would like to make changes to 2 of the conditions of approval. On condition number 2, on the top of page 7, we'd like to add the word minimum between just before a 30-foot wide sewer easement. So it would read, dedicate a minimum 30-foot wide sewer easement, and then to strike the words along the east lot boundary and replace it with centered on the sewer line. And then on condition 3, we would like to add the phrase resolve the need to at the beginning of the condition. So it would read resolve the need to decommission all existing wells and provide a decommissioning log to on-site water wastewater services. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer questions, and the petitioner's here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Here we have the petitioner's presentation.
I'm Taylor Moore with Enterprise Engineering, representing Rich Young. And as staff has commented that there's approval for all the requested vacations. Just to illustrate, the orange areas are what we're looking to dedicate to the municipality. And the yellow areas on this diagram are what we're looking to vacate and will be included in the new lot configuration for this parcel. And the only other comment that we had with regard to the proposed conditions is that we'd like to change for condition number 2, the 30-foot wide sewer easement from being a minimum to just being 30-foot wide, as that is what was adequate and requested by AWU. Other than that, I don't think that we've seen any contentions as to opposing this project.
Thank you. Taylor Warren, we have a few questions for you. Don Porter.
Sorry. So where in your diagram is the section line easement? There's a 33. Shouldn't there be a 33 on the other side of the north-south?
That's correct. At the southwest corner of the existing lot configuration, on the plat diagram, the preliminary plat, in the overview, you'll see the numbers 25, 25, 30, 36, and 31, and that is the section corner, and from there, there's a 33-foot section line in all directions. Or section line easement, I'm sorry. And those are currently underlying the 50-foot road reservation easements. And it is because of those underlying section line easements that we're going to dedicate the 33 feet that overlaps it of the road reservation easement to the municipality, as we're not seeking to vacate the section line easements.
I understand now. It was rather confusing. You have overlapping. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Through the chair, please. Where is the sewer line easement that you're referring to on this plat?
The sewer line easement is along or near the easternmost boundary of the parcel, running north-south. One of the schematics that we show the sewer line somewhere in the approximation of 10 feet from the existing lot line, to the west of the existing lot line.
Thank you. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Moore, on your request to change the wording on number 2, on item number 2, dedicate a minimum to just dedicate 30 feet. If we leave the word a minimum of 30 feet, how does that impact the development?
Just we're looking to not have more than 30 feet. dedicated, as that's what was provided as the request.
And if we required a minimum of 30 feet, would that require more than 30 feet?
It leaves it open-ended.
Okay, thank you.
Staff, Francis McLaughlin.
Thank you. I thought I'd better get in early just to explain that. So at 4:30 this evening, Paul Hatcher from Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility Planning Office, who submitted the comments, told me that he'd made a mistake in his written comments and had meant to say a minimum of 30 feet because he's looking at taking 1 or 2 feet more. He said it looks like he'll ask for an easement of 31 feet, but he needs to verify that and work with Taylor on that. So he asked for me to change the condition of approval to reflect what he intended to state, which was a minimum of 30 feet, so he could take more for the easement for the sewer line. Now, if it turns out that he needed less, then he's willing to work with the petitioner, but that's what AWU is seeking, and that's why staff is asking for it now.
Thank you. Don Porter.
Well, can we narrow it down to, instead of saying a minimum of 30, can we say no larger than 35? Or, I mean, it's pretty open-ended when you say a minimum, and then it could be 50 feet, it kind of, it doesn't really, so I would like to put some boundaries on that.
Sure. I mean, for my part, I would rather not sort of get into a wordsmithing sort of argument, because each of us can have our own opinion on how to follow with it. If you want to revise the condition, I just leave it with AWU may need more than 30 feet, and that's why I added the word a minimum of 30 feet. If the board wants to put a parameter on that, dedicate a maximum of 35 feet, staff would have no objection to that. It's my belief that that AWU utility is not going to take any more easement than they believe is required, and is not going to unfairly burden this property. They're a very good utility in this respect, and with these plattings, they're expert in understanding these. And I don't know. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. The AWWU is required to protect the water mains by a 30-foot wide easement. Do you have any idea why they might need more than 30 feet?
No, I don't.
In your specific circumstances? Right? Sewer line. Any other questions? Thank you. We'll now open the floor up to the public. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Please come forward.
Good evening. James Canetz. I live across the street from the proposed construction site. I speak in opposition of the project.
Can you please state your name, and then we'll start?
James Canetz, C-A-N-I-T-Z.
Thank you.
I speak in opposition to the proposed project. The neighborhood is single-family homes. The road is relatively lightly traveled. This project would increase the congestion and amount of traffic in that area, create a bunch of noise. There's really not any recreational or areas for the residents of this project to spread out into in the neighborhood. The lake is a privately held lake, although there's public access that has been grandfathered. We just see this as a inappropriate project for the neighborhood. It's out of character for the nature of the residential area. That's all I have. I'd like to reserve my time.
Only the movement gets to reserve time.
Okay.
So you can use all your time now, and then we'll ask questions.
I don't have anything else to say except where can I get one of the packages? Thank you.
Oh, we have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Dan Young.
Yes, Mr. Canitz, you have several concerns, a single-family neighborhood, but this is not a zoning issue tonight. This is just a platting issue. You raised the issue of traffic, and I'm seeing that this is a 2-acre parcel. How is the development of this going to create detrimental traffic problems?
Well, I understand it's going to be an apartment building with multiple units, and all the traffic in and out of the proposed apartment would create a lot of congestion on that intersection, since it's located only a couple feet from the intersection of a major highway there, the Old Glen Highway.
And are you aware that this is not going to exit out onto the highway directly?
Exactly.
So how would this impact the highway?
No, it's going to impact East Lake Ridge Drive, because the intersection is very close to where they're constructing this building, and it's not an easy road to get in and out of because of some changes that they made when they put in the water line. Instead of a straight access now, it's kind of a 60-degree turn to get in and out of it. It makes sight a little difficult and turning a little difficult, and with all the extra traffic right there, I think it caused a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question for you. The petitioner is looking to vacate a road right-of-way. And are you aware of any evidence that would suggest the road that's looking to be vacated has any value to the city?
Which road are you talking about?
It looks like the 50-foot wide BLM road right-of-way and easement on the east, south, and west sides of the subdivision.
I would prefer that they not be granted that extra easement on the west side, as that would change the nature of the easements for all the other properties along East Lake Ridge Drive. On the south and east sides, I have no objection.
Thank you. There are no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the board on this matter?
Hello, my name is Dan Kendall. Thank you. Kendall.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time on the board. I, too, once served on the Platting Board, and it was quite an experience. We're here today to address vacations of right-of-way, and I have issue with vacating the right-of-way on the east. I think it is needed for municipal purposes. I hope all of you visited the site to see the topography and how people access coming around the back way and access going straight up on Raylene Street, how you're going to access those lots. Monroe Street is a driveway, basically. The house is fairly close to the right-of-way. It's much steeper than the access going back on Raylene Street. Just a history for the zoning on BLM lots 103, 101, and 100. They were part of the area-wide rezone in 1985 that allowed better than grandfather rights for the existing businesses that were on the properties. The businesses on Lot 100 and 101 are still there, still doing their local business. I'm not sure whatever the business purpose was for 103, but it was also rezoned B3. Lake Ridge Drive is a local street. The Old Glen Highway is a major collector street. And so if you allow access to the local street, I think you're violating several portions of the official streets and highways plan and municipal code. The B3 should be accessing the major collector road for their business. BLM Lot 104 is owned by a Klutna, which adds an interesting wrinkle to access to the Glen Highway. However, there are 3 existing driveways to those 3 lots at the moment. So I don't think if you vacate the right-of-way, you should not allow access to East Lake Ridge Drive because it's a local street, and businesses are not normally allowed access to local streets. So, and just for the record, I own Lot 4, Kendall subdivision, and Raylene Street is certainly needed for access for that, and to other lots along that. And it is a BLM right-of-way because every other lot in the quarters, they put in a 50-foot BLM right-of-way on each side in addition to the section line. And these lots, 103 to 67, are the adjustment in the grid, so there isn't a double set of lots there. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Staff.
Just for clarification, I'm going to read from the official streets and highways plan. It says, first of all, that the Old Glen Highway is a major arterial, and under guidelines for major arterials, it says provide no direct land access. So what that is saying on page 11 of the official streets and highways plan is that no individual property should be having direct access onto a major arterial. It should always be from a side street like Lake
Ridge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
May I comment?
No, but if we have questions for you, you may get Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, Mr. Kendall, would you care to comment on staff's comments in that regard?
Yes. As I stated earlier, there's 3 existing driveways that go from BLM lots 100, 101, and 103 that are there today existing. So it's already a viable option. Raylene Street has been a dedicated street as the lots developed, with the impression that someday the road would go all the way to the Old Glen Highway. It's more than 300 feet from East Lake Ridge Drive to Raylene Street. It's not it's a city block, so that it's not a traffic issue per se. You could consolidate the driveways of 103 and 101 into the new Raylene Street if you wanted to limit access. But I think the access point for this property should be at Raylene Street because it is a road reservation that should be a road right-of-way. And again, I want to say, I think there is a prohibition on access from B3 properties to local roads.
Still on the floor. Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. McLaughlin, can you comment on Mr. Kendall's testimony here in regards to the 3 driveways that are currently accessing Old Glen, and also his comments in regards to B3 zone properties?
Yes, thank you. DOT and the municipal traffic engineer are trying to reduce the number of existing direct driveways out onto collector streets or greater, trying to consolidate them, or at time of platting action force them to use alternative methods, especially if there's an existing street there. There's no prohibition on B3 property accessing a local road. I think that it's recognized that industrial traffic and commercial traffic, trying to find routes that don't go through residential neighborhoods. In this case, the property is proposed to be developed with residential. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Don Porter.
Mr. Kendall, as far as Raylene Street, what is the character of Raylene Street at this point?
It's, well, it was opened up when the sewer line was put in. The sewer line goes as far as the northwest corner of Lot 101. Water line is down at the bottom left near the section line markers. It's a right-of-way that has no construction on it because development hasn't happened in that area, which is quite common in the Chugiak area.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the board on the matter? The public hearing is now closed and the matter rests with the board. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. You may have your rebuttal, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think you had 7 minutes.
All right, with regard to the first for traffic congestion and noise, any site plan development, future development on this parcel will be in compliance with Title 21 and will be subject to municipal site plan review, and I believe is not relevant for this hearing. With regard to the easement vacation to the east and serving access to the surrounding parcels, I'd like to clarify, if I might, using my diagram here, to kind of explain some of the scenario that we have going on. To the south of our subject parcel here, BLM Lot 104 is actually privately owned, or it's actually owned by McLutina Corporation, and does not allow for access across Lot 104, the 50-foot strip to the south, from the Glen Highway up to the lots to the north. The public, nor state, anybody has access across that as it is privately owned. In addition to that, all of the surrounding parcels have adequate access from Monroe Avenue and Raylene Street that comes along the north of Lot 102, and would provide adequate access to BLM Lot 101. Further, I don't see how any access that's currently in trespass along Lot 104 has any bearing on what we're trying to do on Lot 103 and the vacation there to the east. And any development between lots 102 and lots 101 of a roadway, as I believe Mr. McLaughlin commented on would still be able, as there's still a 100-foot right-of-way, as until we get down to the portion that we're looking to vacate.
Ken Fuller.
Yes, Mr. Taylor, where does the lot currently act? It appears like the only driveway I see on page 16 is from the old Glen.
That is correct.
And are they proposing accessing
There will
some other
be-
place?
Sorry, there will be an additional driveway accessing Lot 103 from East Lake Ridge Drive.
Thank you. Or how close would that be to the south edge?
That has not been determined yet, and that will be under driveway permit review.
Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, do they have an existing driveway permit, DOT driveway permit then to access Old Glen? Is that?
There is not. It is just kind of existing. It's actually, there's nothing that's.
There's not a current permit in place for that driveway access?
No, it's just kind of is.
Probably there's a comment that as you go through site plan review, the DOT will require a permit for that existing access, require you to apply for that grandfathered access, and chances are, if this platting note's put on this, that will not be granted. Just a general comment that I have.
And we're aware of that.
Thank you. Don Porter. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair. We've heard testimony tonight about traffic increasing and becoming a problem. And you don't have a definite plan of where the traffic is going to go from this property, or you do?
We do not. Again, I believe that would all fall under site plan review.
Okay. And what kind of traffic problems do you foresee this our approval tonight would create?
I don't foresee any problems that it would create. If anything, it would potentially help alleviate access problems and traffic that's feeding directly onto the Glen, which is, as Mr. McLaughlin said, is something that the DOT and municipality are actively seeking to limit.
Thank you. And through the chair, if I may continue, we heard testimony tonight that this is going to increase the noise level, and I'm seeing this is close to the highway. What kind of noise increase would you expect from this development?
I wouldn't expect any increased noise average for any B3 SL residential area.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair, for me.
Kevin Cross.
Thank you. Also, in regards to the concern with traffic noise, it appears as if there's already 5 existing structures on there. Is that correct?
That is.
They're mobile homes. I'm anticipating they're 3-bedroom, 1-bath units, or?
The exact configuration of the structures I'm not privy to, but there are existing structures on the property.
Yeah, but there's already 5 units, which I'm assuming each is occupied by a family. What is the end usage? What is the building that's proposed to be built on the lot?
The building that is going to be that's proposed, nothing has been tacked down as final as of yet, but we're considering condominiums.
Okay. Excellent. Do you have a quantity? Just out of
I believe that we're considering somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 structures, but again, everything will be in compliance with Title 21 and conditional to site plan review.
3 condos or 3 structures? Of which condos?
3 structures.
All right. Total of units?
Potentially 2. I do not have that information.
All right. Thank you.
Don Porter.
Yes, so kind of continuing that line of question, how does that fit in with the B3 SL zoning? Can you speak to that kind of point, sort of a little more detail on that?
It's permitted under current and it's called new Title 21 code.
So you're going under old code.
We are going under old code. I'm just noting that it will be in compliance, even if the site plan were to be submitted under new. But again, this site plan, I feel, is not the purpose of what we're presenting here today, and that's potentially a separate hearing.
Well, I guess the only reason I'm asking about it is because I just want to clarify that the things that you're intending are fully within the anticipated zoning, and the anticipated use are fully within the zoning. So it's kind of important to point out that you know what the rules are and you're following the rules.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I have a couple more concerns that have come up. There's a public comment that was submitted late, so you may not have seen it. It looks like October 30th it was received by the staff, and it brought up an issue of increased traffic, which you've addressed, and it also suggested that there's now going to be crime, public disturbance, and fire hazards. Can you address those for us, please?
We don't anticipate any of those to be factors in the intended development of this site.
Thank you.
May I speak once? I'm the developer, Rich Young, and I want to address Mr. Porter's question.
Thank you.
About the use, the zoning. It is special limitations B3. The only use for this property is high-density residential. All other uses are excluded.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions? Thank you. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the vacations? Dan Young, would you please state your motion for the record?
Yes, in the case S12225-1, Lakeview subdivision, I move for approval of the vacation of the 50-foot wide BLM road right-of-way and utility easement reserve, patent number 1205469, on the east, south, and west sides of Lakeview subdivision, lots 103A, subject to recording a final plat within 18 months and any approved time extensions.
And Ken Fuller seconds. Would you please speak to your motion?
Yes, I intend to support this motion. The planning division finds that the right-of-way dedications on 3 sides of the petition site are adequate for municipal needs, and they're recommending approval of vacations. And because they are adequate for municipal needs, I will support this. And on the east, Lake Ridge Drive is going to have 60 feet or 66 feet of right-of-way, which exceeds the minimum standard of 60 feet. So I intend to support this motion.
Thank you. Is there any other findings to be offered? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. May I now have a motion to approve the plat for 18 months? Dan Young, would you please state your motion for the record?
Yes, in the matter of case S12225, Lakeview subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 18 months subject to the following conditions. Item number 1 on page 6, and I'm going to modify item number 2 to resolve the need to dedicate a minimum 30-foot wide sewer easement centered on the sewer line. And items number 3 through 7 on page 7.
Thank you. Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, I just want some clarity on the motion that Mr. Young made, and I'm trying to resolve the suggestion that Mr. McLaughlin made in his testimony. So I'd like to ask Mr. McLaughlin a question regarding his suggested language on.
Well, I think his suggested language for 3 would add words resolve the need to in front of decommissioning on number 3. Do you want to make a motion to amend the motion on the floor?
Yeah, I did not hear that from Mr. Young's
right.
Motion, so I want to clarify, I guess, Mr. Young, did you intend to not add that clarity that was suggested by staff?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, I did omit that by accident, so thanks for pointing that out. And I would like to change my motion for item number 3 to resolve the need to decommission all existing wells and provide a decommissioning log to OSWWS, which is on-site water and wastewater services.
Thank you. And just for clarification, the motion on the floor is approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to the following conditions 1 through 7, with the modification of 2 to be dedicate a minimum of 30-foot wide sewer easement centered on the sewer line, and 3, resolve the need to decommission all existing wells and provide a decommissioning log to OSWWS.
Correct.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I intend to support the motion, and I think the findings tonight support this. We've addressed issues. Issues from the public were raised about traffic, and we found no evidence that traffic is going to be increased and it possibly is going to be decreased. Issues came up tonight about noise, and we found that there's not going to be a noise issue. We found, we heard that there's going to be increased crime from one member of the public, and we found no evidence that there's going to be any increase in crime. One member of the public in a written testimony said there was going to be a fire hazard, but we found no evidence that there would be an increased fire hazard. And we heard that there was a potential prohibition of access to the local roads, and the staff told us that there is no prohibition. So with the issues that have come in front of us, we have found no facts to support those problems, and given that this is going to be safe as far as we can tell, I'm going to support this motion.
Thank you. Any other findings? Kevin Cross.
I also intend to support this for the following reasons. In regards to the public testimony that we've heard that there was a traffic concern, and I'm pointing in the packet on page 4, particularly as it pertains to East Lake Ridge Drive, that it says specifically on item number 4 under section 4, the petitioner is alerted to the possibility of requiring improvements to East Lake Ridge Drive under the pending land use permit process as required by MC 2115-150 or the traffic engineering department. It means once they have a final building, there may have to be alterations, which means they'll have to go through traffic, and those will have to be addressed at that time. So if there is an additional traffic concern, those are to be handled appropriately through the engineering department. Additionally, we heard there's noise. The proximity to the Glen Highway, I think, would be your greatest noise. The highway traffic, it is a main thoroughfare, will probably be louder than individuals parking and living. And the final concern is crime, because they stayed in an apartment building. However, this intended usage for high development is for condominiums. Condominiums are required for a 51% owner occupancy under FHA and conventional guidelines. Otherwise, they run into financing issues, which means they are not primarily rentals. They are primarily owner occupancy, which is a low crime rate. So under those findings of all three, I choose to support this motion.
Thank you. Don Porter.
Yes, through the chair, thank you. Initially in the review, I had some concerns about the right-of-way vacation, and specifically on the east side, opposing Raylene Street. But given the fact that DOT has specifically stated that they would not allow connection of Raylene Street to the DOT and PF right-of-way, and they would suggest a cul-de-sac or something else, and that there's an adequate 100 feet adjacent to lot 102 and 101 to be constructed. I am comfortable that the right-of-way is access to the need of the public. I don't like giving away the right-of-way, but in this case it seems to be appropriate. So I will indeed support the motion.
Trevor Edmondson.
I intend to support the motion as well, and I just want to add on to Mr. Porter's comments that currently the lot does not abut the Old Glen Highway due to the fact that BLM lot 104 is owned by Klutna, so therefore Raylene does not have right-of-way to the Old Glen Highway right-of-way due to that BLM lot 104. So it's a comment that supports Mr. Porter's testimony as well.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? The motion passes. That brings us to case S12227, Silverwood Hills Estate, number 1. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On September 5th, 2012, the Platting Board approved the subdivision of one lot into 4 lots with variances from legal and physical access and lot frontage and access to a public street. The petition site contains 21.9 acres and is zoned R8, Rural Residential District, large lot. The preliminary plat was approved for 18 months, subject to the 9 conditions. The first time extension request was approved by the Platting Board on May 21st, 2014 to resolve issues presented by the traffic and fire departments. This second and final time extension request was received September 2nd, 2015, prior to the November 6, 2015 expiration date in accordance with the Anchorage Municipal Code. The current conditions are substantially the same as those which existed when the preliminary plat was originally approved, and reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to the time extension request. The department recommends approval of this second 18-month time extension, which would put it out to May 6, 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Is the petitioner present for presentation? Is there anyone, petitioners here?
Hello, Board. Chairman, my name is Mark Seward. I'm the surveyor on this project. I'm might have to have a little bit of declaration on this, is that I'm the authorized petitioner's representative for the original owner. The project's kind of been on hold for the last year and a half. This gentleman, he died this summer, and so the estate is being resolved in those complicated issues, and the current lady that is listed is, I've met her once for a couple minutes, so I'm just assuming that I'm probably legally still the petitioner's representative. So I'm not sure if I should be speaking now or as a public.
I think now is appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the whole reason for that. The petitioner is, they're completely unaware. It was an unmarried couple, and she's taken over. She has no idea of the process of whatever's going on. It's all foreign to her. And so I'd gotten the notice from the municipality about the extension. I thought, I better be here because I kind of suspected no one would show up. And so I'd be glad to answer any questions you have, as I've handled this case, this whole subdivision from day one. We've actually done about 3 different plats on that property. So.
Okay. Any questions? Dan Young.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Seward, if we approve this time extension tonight, are you going to be able to help the new owner comply with this and get this developed?
Yes, if they wish to employ me to finalize it, yes, I would be doing that. They're very close to it. Minor detail, they were close to doing it, and yes, if that's their decision though, if they hire me or they may hire somebody else. So I'm not sure, but I'd be glad to help them to finalize if that's what their wishes are.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, and I will reserve the rebuttal time if needed. Thank you.
8.5 minutes. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Anyone at all? Mr. Seward, would you like to use your rebuttal time? Thank you. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the time extension request? Trevor Edmondson moves.
Mr. Chair, in case S12227 Silverwood Hills Estate number 1 subdivision, I move for approval of a second time extension as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you, and that is for a approval of the second time extension to May 6, 2017. Is Dan Young his seconds? Is there any discussion or findings? Trevor Edmondson.
Mr. Chair, I intend to support my motion. It appears, based on a testimony we heard here tonight, there's some extenuating circumstances that have caused for the petitioner to not be able to resolve some of the conditions of this plat, and due to those extenuating circumstances, I believe it's appropriate to approve the second time extension.
Thank you. Dan Young.
Through the chair, I agree with Mr. Edmondson, but I also want to point out that one of the conditions for us approving this would be to look at whether the conditions are changing, and in this case, the current conditions are substantially the same. And for that additional reason, I'm going to support this motion.
Thank you. Any other findings? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 2111-304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the decision is made. On the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written notice alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision under AMC 2130. Are there any other persons to be heard before the board tonight? The board members have any comments they'd like to make on the record? With that, we will then be adjourned at 7:55.